David was confronted again and again with violent attacks from King Saul. He managed to survive all of them, and in the struggle, there was a couple of occasions in which David could have killed Saul, though he never took advantage of any of those possibilities because he recognized and respected the sanctity of the person and office of the one anointed by God to become king. Even though that king had lost the right to serve as king through his sin, and God had promised that David would take over for him, which in the end he did. Today, many people gather in Washington, D.C. for the March for Life. They're standing up for the unborn, recognizing something a step deeper than what David had grasped in his life. They're there in recognition of the fact that every person is created in the image and likeness of God. And so all life has a sacredness and value that goes beyond our understanding. And just as David could see the legitimate need to respect the life of Saul as anointed king, so we as a society need to recognize the sacredness of every person from conception until natural death. The message of the saint we celebrate today, Saint Francis de Sales, fits into that reality nicely. He worked hard to remind people that each and every one of us has been called to a life of holiness, regardless of their station in life. He believed that the fact we were made in the image of God and given a personal call from the Lord means that we need to respect the sanctity of our own persons and express it by a prayerful relationship with God and a constant process of letting His grace transform us and help us to become who we were created to be. All these things together bring us to a reminder today of the sanctity of life. A sanctity that applies to all human beings. It applies to the most vulnerable, such as the unborn. It applies to those who might act as enemies, like King Saul. And it applies to the way that we live our lives. In the call to let that sanctity grow and shine out through all that we do, all that we say, and all that we are. Whatever we might be doing today, whatever our calling in life might be, we're called to be saints. We have been chosen by the Lord for a particular mission. And just as He called the 12 apostles by name, so each and every one of us has been called by name to fulfill a vocation, a particular way of bringing God's love into this world that can only be done by us, specifically by us. So let's take some time today to pray for the respect of the sanctity of all life and ask for the grace to let ourselves live a life that is truly holy and showcases the reality of the presence of God in our hearts, of that great gift we received in our baptism, of being united with Christ, and receiving the gift of making His presence real to those who meet us by the way that we let His love shine through us, and the way we recognize the sacredness of their humanity and that of all people, regardless of who they are or what they did, but just because they were made in the image of God from the moment of their conception. And no matter how tarnished that image might become, it is always there, making them sacred.